conclusione in rete, Andrea Pirlo, un gol pazzesco! Del Piero, gol! Alex Del Piero! Di Pogacar, Pogba, rete! Un gol incredibile! Pogba fa esplodere lo Juventus Stadium!
Welcome all to episode 323 of the Turin Giants podcast. This one dubbed Brambillaball, as we come to you live after the 3-1 victory of Juventus over Udinese. My name is Zach. I'm joined by Federic and Jack. Gentlemen, both of our almost birthday boys. How are you?
Feeling a little older today, but a W definitely takes some years off.
Well, they say that being a Juventus supporter is pretty rough. I can confirm I just turned 18 like last year. Look at me. No. I'm kidding. I feel a bit older as well, and let's hope we don't have too many downs or coach switches in the next couple of months, because it doesn't really help.
Well, we're going to have a coach switch because Brambilla is not going to be our coach for very long. We will talk later in this episode about the back-end going-ons with regards to Spalletti. But I want to start and talk about our first win in, a month and a half, which is just ridiculous to say, and it's understandable considering the performances that, unfortunately, we are without a coach. But we saw a different guy on the bench, and in my opinion, we saw a different complexion or attitude or energy on the pitch. Jack, was that just me, or did there seem to be a degree of freedom or liberation in the players that we saw playing today?
No, definitely. I think the movement was more aggressive. I think the biggest piece of evidence for that is 100% that after Gatti scored, we kept pressing. Right, there was no let up. We did not see the let's hang in our own half. Let's let Locatelli spray a long ball out wide and see what happens. The old give Kenan the ball and see what he can do. We saw McKinney pushing upfield, Kalulu pushing up the flank, Cambiaso on the other side, really putting pressure on them trying to come out of the back. So I think that if I had to pick one moment in the game, that was something that stood out to me, is after Gatti scored. We did not sit back just hoping to hang on for the last 20 minutes, that we were really pushing for the third.
All right, Negative Nancy, do you agree with Jack?
No, I don't.
Of course.
No, I do in part, but you have to always consider the other aspects. Udinese didn't press us for the first 20 minutes, which gave us a lot of room, a lot of space, which resulted in us being pretty much dominant that first 20 minutes. And then there's the simple fact that your coach is gone. You have an interim coach on the bench. You know that your new coach is due to arrive probably tomorrow. So you want to get a head start in terms of that, because you know that he'll be watching it, maybe not even live, because he had other things he needed to attend to, but maybe, a bit later. And that is your first impression as a player. Let's forget the first training. This was their first impression. And they knew it. So, that basically hypes up a bit of the enthusiasm. And I saw Udinese play a couple of games this season, and I was sometimes thoroughly impressed by how they performed. I thought they were very weak. And the fact that they basically committed suicide when they got Zaniolo, when they subbed Zaniolo and the other guy, I can't remember the name, but they were their two best players, in my opinion. Didn't help their case either, but nonetheless, it was a step forwards from what we were used to this past month and a half. So I'm very happy to see that, and I hope will continue on, because we desperately needed this one.
Do you think that Udinese kind of expected to walk into a bit of a dumpster fire, disorganized team, crowd, getting ready to maybe jump on their back if something went wrong? Because it did seem that they did not come in with a level of organization that they did earlier this year for a team that's currently top half of the table.
I think Udinese didn't expect Juventus to come out viciously. I think that's why they didn't put a high press against us in the first 20 minutes, because they thought that we're going to be very tame and very weak in the beginning moments. And I think they didn't expect that. And then you get that penalty really quick, which puts them behind very soon, which I don't think would have happened if we didn't got that penalty. So in parts, Udinese was right with their pre-game thoughts. On the other hand, we had luck on our side for once, and it was way overdue. So
Speaking of luck, we are lucky to be joined by several people in chat. We are live on YouTube for folks listening in. You can also catch our recordings of our episodes not only on YouTube but also on Spotify. I want to welcome Antonio, Giorgo, Azaru, some of our frequent flyers, I should say, Nick, Shashko, Mohammed, and everyone else watching. Thank you for joining us today. Jack, I saw you were about to say something. Jump in on this.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Fred was saying, I don't think Udinese was well prepared, but I also think I don't remember who on an earlier podcast mentioned playing Yildiz behind the two strikers, but I don't know if that they were ready for that, and I think that contributed to their disorganization and defense.
I think all of us said it at one point, Jack.
Yeah. No, I think you guys. So one of the earlier pods, you were talking about what would the ideal lineup be, right? I think Fred mentioned putting Yildiz in behind two strikers, and I've been echoing the same thing. Maybe to my 11-year-old, he doesn't listen the same way, but I thought that was a good move. I thought if Brambillaball was going to pull a surprise out of his back pocket or something unexpected, that would be it. And I don't think they were ready for that. And I think, like I said, that contributed to some of that disorganization they had. And that definitely contributed to the first goal with Gojotise being a little bit too central and having to step out on Vlahovic when he cut into that space.
So speaking of Vlahovic, and speaking, as Frederic said earlier, that this was in a lot of ways that first opportunity for Spalletti to get a view of our players. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of go down, each of us, start with what player impressed you. If you're Spalletti, then we're going to go back, with each of us and answer the question of who didn't. So, Jack, we'll start with you because you're to my far right. Who impressed you? If you're Spalletti, are you looking at and say, this guy really, really showed promise and I'd want him in my team?
Aside from the obvious, I think, and it's a small sample size, but I think today I was pleased with what I saw from Openda. I thought he was afforded some freedom. He was dropping back. You saw him and Yildiz switching positions a lot. You saw Yildiz out on the flank and him dropping into that central position. He had good movement. His pace was definitely something he had in his back pocket. He was beating players. He had a decent first touch. He played a couple good passes into the box. I think he offers us a lot, whether it's as like a vice Yildiz, right? Because Yildiz definitely needs a break. That's something I was definitely feeling at the end of the game. They kept
he was gassed. Yeah.
Yeah, he was tired. They were hacking at him. I think his knee was bleeding at 10 minutes into the game. And it's that one that's always bandaged. So whether that's Openda's spot going forward, I'm not sure. But he pleased me today, right? And again, small sample size. We don't have much to compare it to, but I was happy with what I saw.
He's absolutely missing the final ball. He hasn't scored yet, but the way we played today tactically with two central strikers and wing backs that for portions would stay further back, left the channel open, is this very similar to how Openda was able to play off of Šeško over at Leipzig. And I think we saw his potential in this team in part due to Udinese staying a little loose in the backside. But I agree that you saw a lot more potential from him today than in other games. Frederic, who impressed you today?
I'm going to go out by stating the obvious for me. That was Vlahovic. Not necessarily technically, but you see that he was on point for 90 minutes. He tried his best, whatever he could do. And I think this also had to do with the fact that he had two creative players surrounding him, giving him a bit more freedom, not being as isolated as he was in the past up front. That's one thing. And the other one, and I'm sounding very repetitive once again, was Kelly. I think from our defensive back line, you couldn't flaw him. There was nothing, or at least nothing major that I think that he did wrong. And the fact that he always tries to recuperate the ball when there's a loss of possession, be it in midfield, be it up front, be it in his own perimeter. So for me, Kelly is one of the people that's most consistent throughout the last couple of games. And he's evolving as a player. If we saw him arrive like at the end of last season, you could see that his performances were in crescendo, and he's carrying that on forwards to this and this season. So I hope there'll be something to look out for.
If there's anybody who, and I said this earlier in the season, is candidate for comeback player of the year, it's got to be him in my book, based on just, I think, objectively speaking, how poor he was in the second half of last season. But we've seen a complete 180, much to our benefit. Ignoring the fact that Frederic took 2 players, cheating. I was kind of torn to.
It's my birthday tomorrow. I'm allowed to cheat. Let me have that one, Zach.
Okay. Well, Vlahovic.
Thank you.
I will say this. I'm going to disagree with you. I'll allow you the 2, but I'm going to disagree with you slightly on the Vlahovic bit. Not that he wasn't deserving of praise, but I think it has absolutely nothing to do with any of the players around him. For the first time in ever, he was holding the ball up. And so that's an individual thing. He was able to use his physicality to turn defenders. That's an individual thing. He was able to effectively collect the ball and turn into space. That's an individual thing. These are 0 of 3. He did for 99% of the games in a Juventus jersey, but he did that today, showing fire, showing drive, and showing technical ability that we've been deprived of, which just is so frustrating with him, because he has it in the locker, and he doesn't show it except in just briefest of moments. So I think he's absolutely credit of this performance, and it's because he performed the way we all knew he could when we bought him, but we just haven't seen enough.
I also think that this was a clear indication of Brambilla to Vlahovic, because we were not expecting Vlahovic to start, or not a lot of people were expecting Vlahovic to start. So I think Brambilla gave him the chance, the benefit of the doubt, but said to him, like, you have to keep, you have to shield off the ball a bit more, turn into space. And maybe not as a direct consequence, but I also feel that he looked more comfortable on the ball because he wasn't marked by 2 or 3 people at once. If you look at the previous games,
yeah,
2 or 3 people, like bees on honey, sticking onto him. That wasn't the case today. And with Vlahovic, it's very much so that if he starts the game well, he continues that flow. He's a very emotional player. So the fact that he got that penalty very soon, and he was just straight into the game in terms of touches, in terms of shielding a ball, in terms of having a bit more space than he was used to, I think that contributed to his overall performance today, and which is fine for us, I feel.
I do have to agree with you, Fred. Whether it was intentional or not, I think some of that was because the play out of the back was happening much faster. Right, some of that slow build-up play that allows defenders to crowd him wasn't happening as much today.
And I think that's because we played more directly and effectively more directly. Go to your point, Jack, with Openda running in the channel, drawing defenders. Well, when you draw defenders, especially with direct balls, that creates space because everyone is reacting. And so now there's space opening up for people to move into and around. That allows somebody to come and drop in underneath like a Yildiz, who can then feed the ball into Dusan. Or Openda makes the run, the ball goes to Dusan. And so he's got, like Frederic said, one less defender. And we saw, I think, a combination, and I don't want to go too much into tactics because Brambilla is not the guy for the future, but we saw effective execution of direct play leading to quick interchanges that advance the ball quickly up the pitch. And we're going to maybe talk a little bit about this after we talk about players, but part of you wonders, why haven't we seen this kind of play since Parma? Which is a little frustrating. I'm going to give you mine. I'll tell the folks in the chat, put who you think really impressed you today. If you're Spalletti, who are you making a mental note to focus in on based on their performance today? I was going to go with Yildiz because he's fantastic. But since y'all both said aside from the obvious, I will say aside from Yildiz, who's kind of impressive to me today is Kostic. I said that Kostic has really no position, not only on this team, but definitely within Spalletti's 4-3-3. And so here's a guy who's trying to do his best to impress and to show that he's still got it in the locker room. And as much as he is a one-dimensional player, I think he didn't really do anything wrong today. He was where he needed to be along the left wing, either to support the build-up play, say a criticism I've had of someone like Chico Conceição, who struggles in that phase of play, while also being aggressive in the offensive half, popping up into space, obviously doing his crossing gig, half of which get blocked, and putting in a really good shot. I think he came in with a very professional attitude and played his role to perfection, considering the whole team had only one day with Brambilla before today. So I think he showed up and did a very professional job in a moment of potential turbulence of this team. Let's see what we got Triz shout outs Okoye. Yes. Lots of shots on goal today. Let's see. We got 25 shots, 11 on target. And not all of those saves from Okoye were like routine, right at him, tame efforts. You have several legitimate good shots. Kalulu's sort of short volley. You had Kostic's shot that we referred to. He did really well, and I think it's Farhad who always bemoans the fact that whatever goalkeeper we play turns into prime Buffon against us. And I think Okoye is a competent keeper, but he definitely played a very good game to Udinese, keeping them in the game longer than they probably should have been.
I feel that Okoye is underrated in that aspect. I think he's been doing really well for 2 seasons now at Udinese. The games that I've seen him play, he is very good, especially within aerial duels and those quick snap saves. So I still think he has some work on, his feet in terms of playing the ball in and goal kicks and such. But reaction wise and aerial skill wise, he is very, very competent. And he's, I think, the kind of a second goalkeeper you'd wish at Juve, because he's always very professional. He's always ready. You could see that that's a guy who spends a lot of time training, improving. If I had to choose between him and Perin, or even Di Gregorio for that matter, I wouldn't hesitate for a moment. But that's just my negative Nancy demon on my shoulder talking.
He's very good at balls coming into the box, right? The corner kicks, besides, I think Vlahovic in the first half had a header that went over the bar.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, he really commanded his area, and that's something we sorely lack. So I think that was very obvious, right, when you contract obesity all the time.
Jack, don't get Frederic started about Di Gregorio. I don't think Di Gregorio was much at fault for the goal today. But speaking of players that maybe lacked a little bit of spark today, let's switch from the players who impressed to what players, and I'm not going to say disappointed, but it's maybe who left a little bit to be desired. If you're Spalletti, players that maybe you were not very impressed on, or whether you look at alternatives. Jack, who was that player for you today?
I don't know if I have one that stands out. Put on the spot, I might say Cambiaso. I didn't really see him generate too much today. He seemed to have a ton of wasted movement. Right, he ran a lot, but I don't know that he impacted the game very much. But again, there weren't many that disappointed, as you said, but there were some that left, something to be desired. And I don't know that if we had 100% fit squad, obviously depending on the formation, that he's a shoe-in to start. It's a good player, but again, depending on the formation, I don't know that there's a spot that's 100% his. I think he's going to have to show something to Spalletti to lock down a spot. In a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1, whatever it is, he's going to have to show more.
He was one of my candidates as I sort of mulled on this question myself, Jack. And I think part of it was so annoying to me is that he lost almost every single defensive duel situation. Like, he was very good at recovering the ball, but when he was actually marking a guy in sort of a physical battle, he often lost those 50-50s, and he was partly to blame for the goal against, because he wasn't able to lock down his man, get the ball out of there, and it ended up just keeping it in the box for Zaniolo to find a little bit of space. So I think he definitely didn't impress today. Frederic.
One player or several?
I'm gonna say one, but then you're gonna say three.
No,
I mean,
no. I'm gonna stick to one. I'm gonna stick to one because you're leading the show. I don't want to, put you in a tough spot here. I'm gonna say Locatelli. Yet again, I think his performances are declining every game, and today for me was hopeless as a center midfielder. You spray passes that don't arrive, or either too short or out of bounds. You're always late in duels. Um, Not enough vertical passing, in my opinion. He was a bit, in my opinion, stronger on the defensive side, but that was also because of the tameness of Udinese, in my opinion. I don't know. I don't expect that much from him because I know what his capabilities are and what his strong suits and his weaknesses are. But I feel that he's underperforming, and I don't think the eventual Spalletti news did him any favors either, or it's not going to do him any favors in the future. At least I hope not. I don't think that he's something you need in a two-man midfield at Juventus. Neither is, and I'm going to say the names, and you're going to say, "He told you so." McKennie or Cambiaso, for that respect, they were all very poor today.
I got the impression today that Locatelli was trying too hard. Right, he knew it's like he knew Spalletti was watching, and he was just trying too hard, trying to do too much with the ball with his feet. I did like his effort coming back on defense.
I just can't shake the feeling that he I don't know how to put this. He knows that there are a lot of eyes on him, which is always the case if you're playing at Juventus. But he always brings on that extra baggage of attention and then chokes. Like, yeah, I feel like, yeah, I just don't think he's good enough. He's never been good enough for me.
Well, good enough is a relative term. I think I have to disagree with you on Frederic on the Loca criticism for this game. I don't think he was a standout performer, but he led the game in passing, 14 of passes into the final third, 10 of 12 on long balls. As we mentioned, he was very solid on the defensive side, which was really important with based on how we played and how far up McKennie was. And McKennie was going to be my pick for a player who maybe didn't really impress. And so you have him compensating for the forward movement of the guys ahead of him, as well as McKennie, which put a lot more burden on him in the middle of the pitch with guys like Cambiaso and Kostic out on the wing. And I think he did a two-way job, actually solidly, considering of how we were playing in this more direct fashion, bypassing the midfield in order to create chaos up ahead. So, with respect, as always, Frederic, I think the Loca criticism and Nick in chat agrees with me, at least to some extent, that we don't think Loca was that bad. I think a lot of people will be looking rightfully at Locatelli, especially once Spalletti comes, because of their history, to determine with what maturity Locatelli stands up to his role in this team now under new leadership. And I think that's a big question mark that I have, that if I were to guess, Frederic, you have as well.
I think everybody in the team needs to look in the mirror now. I think it's time for everybody to do that. Not just Loca, McKennie, or whoever. I think everybody, because I'm pretty sure that if somebody comes in with that amount of experience and has the balls on him, as he has proven in the past, to not be afraid of putting out, the prima donnas of the team. I think we have a lot of those on the team. So everybody needs to take a good, hard look in the mirror, especially given the fact that Comoli himself doesn't really appreciate the way that some of the people within the team or within the dressing room are behaving lately. So, if you put that together.
But I know I see what you're saying, but Jack, don't you think that starts with the captain? That's kind of why I highlighted Locatelli in this regard. Captain's in place to be the avatar of management and sort of how to professionally go about your business, right? If that person's not on board, then that isn't that the cause of a locker room sickness?
Yeah, he sets the tone.
Mhm.
Right. We want to give captains the credit when they set a positive tone. We want to blame them when they set a negative tone, or when they don't, don't uplift their teammates right on the field. That's one of the reasons why, as a coach, we pick, our captains for our teams the way we do. Right. You want them supporting their teammates. You want them to be the voice on the pitch, not only speaking to the ref, right, and say, they're the one that's allowed to speak to the ref, but also communicating the coach's ideas to their teammates. Whether it's directly or through their own movements and asking for the ball and playing a ball to a specific spot. So the leadership is both vocal and then in their actions on the pitch. Today we didn't really see much of that. So I see Fred's kind of point there. But I do agree with some in the chat who's saying Luka didn't have that bad of a game. He wasn't the one I would have.
I think I spoke a bit biasly, to be honest, but it's also due to the fact that, I mean, I feel that if you're a captain and you're a captain of a team like Juventus, and I've never once saw Locatelli like being really angry with somebody, even though he has all the right to, because if you look at the past games and even the past few seasons, there were some players that were really underperforming or really cutting corners in that respect. And if you as a captain can't stand up to them on the pitch and give us a clear signal to the rest of the team, then there's no hierarchy. And I feel, maybe I'm old-fashioned and old school in that, but I feel like in a team you need to have some level of hierarchy, especially when you're working with younger or lesser experienced coaches. So if you as a captain, and Locatelli's been playing a while now at a professional level, if you don't have that insight now at a team such as Juventus, and you're scared to come out of that comfort zone and try the best that you can, even vocally, I don't know what your added value is, because everybody can moan to the ref, and the way he even moans to the ref is very meh. I mean, if you're gonna moan, at least do it properly. But like I saw today, and I can but like there was
criticism of Locatelli has reached a new level.
No,
he doesn't moan properly.
No. I mean, you have to look. I don't know if you can look back on that certain play, but there was I think it was in the first half. That was McKennie and Loca. They were involved in a foul, but nobody knew whose foul it actually was, because they both committed one. And you saw Loca, and I actually lip read it, and he said, translated, "Excuse me, is it my fault?" Fuck off.
He's just being polite, Frederic. He's just being polite.
Show some fucking backbone, for fuck's sake. The ref blew. Just, if you feel like it's not your fault, tell the ref that it's not your fault. It wasn't my fault. And then the ref will say, no, it was Weston's fault. Oh, okay, nice. Excuse me. Oh, no, I'm sorry. My rant is over. I'm gonna leave it at that. So I'll just choose Locatelli. Sorry.
All right. Not only, Frederic, did I ask you for one, and you gave me three, but then you came back to re-give me your answer. This is just a new level, Frederic. Just because
Sorry.
I'm forgiving, because y'all's birthdays are coming up. But noted, Frederic. I'm gonna do mine.
Man.
I know I mentioned it. McKennie, Josh kind of encapsulates what I was going to say. He says that McKennie does really well to get in good spots, but his decision making in the final third lets him down. I think it's either his decision making at times or his touch. And I think in a lot of ways, it's easy in the past, it's been easy to forgive McKennie for his mistakes, because he ends up producing. He scores goals. He let us in assists a couple years ago. I think the one thing lacking from his performance this year is that we're not getting that level of goal production from him to kind of balance out more tame or benign efforts. And today, I don't think he played poorly, but I think we really need to see him start to contribute on the goal scoring front, because that is really his niche on our team. Along with his versatility positionally, is to be able to contribute, score goals, and get assists from his various positions. And so maybe that's me being a little bit nitpicky, but that was who I picked.
very valid. But I see somebody, I think it's a 0 in the chat saying, let's talk about David.
Yeah, I was going to highlight the same thing. There you go.
Let's not. Let's not. For the love of all, let's
Okay,
only.
well,
I know.
Let me find that. Let me find his. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I wanted to highlight. Mitch being appreciative of us laughing again after 8 games without a win. There wasn't a lot of laughter unless it was sarcastic in nature. So we are able to somewhat let loose after a 3-1 victory. Okay, where's that comment? Okay. All right, well, here, there's a new one. Azaru, David almost costed us another goal. And did you also think Keenan was trying to avoid any passes to David after that? Is sort of the comment in the question. We only saw him for, I guess with extra time, something like 20, 25 minutes today. We all know in the last game, his errant header back or pass back directly led to the goal that Lazio scored. And one of his passes to nowhere today led to a counter-attacking opportunity that I believe Gatti kind of scooped up on the back end. Do you think it's worth spending a lot of time to talk about David? I mean, is his performance today indicative of anything, or do you want to talk about David more in the abstract, in the sort of season-long performance and status?
I mean, season-long performance, our season's been awful thus far, so it wouldn't be any surprise that our forwards are awful as a whole. The way I look at it is, I think David has potential. I'm not necessarily sure that David has potential within this team or the way that we're playing right now. And I think his confidence and morale is below 0. And this is not an isolated incident. If you look at a lot of players, almost all of them, Koopmeiners, Openda, David, they all suffer from the same thing mentally. I heard some people talking about, but Chico didn't have that. But with Chico, it's a different setting because Chico is so explosive. Whenever he comes in, he kind of makes an impact. And if he doesn't in one game, he'll make an impact in the other because of his explosiveness. Whereas a striker is only feeding off of goals or assists. And if your team doesn't produce enough moving forward, and you cannot, as a player, get goals or assists in, then the jersey becomes very heavy, and it is a very heavy jersey to begin with. On the plus side, we didn't pay a transfer fee for him.
Mm-hmm.
Should the time come that we needed to part ways, I can't see us losing money on that. But then the question begs, who are you going to get? So I wouldn't give up on David just yet. But I would, and I think that the Spalletti cure in that respect will make some of it right. I think that, if he can find his confidence again, as some other players as well, I think we can not see him, firing from all cylinders, but at least be a decent player, because the things that we've seen from David up this far, I mean, horrible, horrible, horrible. You'd think that the guy never saw football in his life.
Yeah, he's definitely struggling. I think he'll come good. I've been a big proponent of his having seen him on and off over the years. He's much better than what he's showing. But ultimately, it's up to him to prove to Spalletti that he belongs on this team. I mean, nobody is guaranteed. Nobody should be guaranteed anything. We saw that last year with Vlahovic. I know who several folks in the chat, like Mitch most recently, has applauded for his performance today. Not having that competition, not having that sort of prove it scenario within the club, just stalled, and you get left with, I guess, a potential dangerous situation. So I don't think he's deserved anything, but he's got the qualities, in my opinion, to do it. Let's shout out a couple more people in the chat. Jack, real quick, sorry to interrupt. I know Sarah's joined us, and apologies, I'm going to absolutely butcher this. Moel Hamal, that's my guess. And the rest of y'all who are commenting, Mitch, Azra, I think I named you already. We really appreciate y'all's contribution. Y'all make these lives a lot of fun for us. Jack, sorry, go ahead.
And I was just briefly going to add, talking about David, that strikers need confidence, right? It comes from 2 places. One is within themselves, right? And we don't have Ale Del Piero, who can go out with a knee injury and then come back and build himself back up, regardless of who's coaching him in the locker room. someone like Jonathan David clearly is lacking in confidence in himself right now. And I think this could be an opportunity for Spalletti to show some confidence in him, because it's a coach's responsibility when it comes to strikers to not only build up their confidence, but to put them in positions to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Spalletti can do that for him, I do still believe in his abilities. And I agree with a few in the chat. Openda has been playing really well. I think we have a decent, strike roster, if you will, but it's going to be on Spalletti now to really put them in positions to be successful, to not only score their goals, but to play off of one another and create more chances and be much more dangerous going forward.
I think one of the things you said that's key with Openda, at least, is play off of Openda. When we saw him playing off of Sesko, it was really, really effective, in my opinion. I think, if you look at a future beyond Vlahovic and you say David's in that position, the passing ability of David and Yildiz, and having interplay with them, kind of staying centrally, and Openda making those channel runs is, in my mind, extremely potent potentially. So it's up to them to execute, and it's up to, like you said, Spalletti to come in and give these guys the encouragement and confidence to get it done. Luca, actually, welcome, Luca, who just popped in. How can you have effective attackers when the midfield is not the best? And maybe, Frederic, this gives you a moment to revisit your Locatelli rant. But we're going to absolutely see a different midfield composition, or at least tactically, under Spalletti. But why don't we just take a second to discuss this? Do you guys are you concerned about a Spalletti-led team from a midfield standpoint to put these strikers on a position to be successful?
I'm not, for two reasons. One of the reasons is I think our midfield is lacking in terms of quality. But I mean, that is what it is for the moment. We cannot, magically wave a wand and have three good midfielders all of a sudden. I do feel that Spalletti can get the maximum out of these players. That's one thing. Just due to his experience, due to the things that he's proven in the past, he's done it like 3 or 4 times. I wouldn't put it past him to do it another time. So that gives me a little bit of hope. And the other thing that I want to mention is I think that Spalletti is very hands-on and transparent in the terms that if he coaches this team for another month and a half and he sees where we're missing something, he'll definitely bring that up to management. And I know for a fact that Spalletti is somebody who likes to be involved with transfer. He doesn't give out names like a lot of trainers do. Like Conte, for instance, says, I want person X, Y, and Z. While Spalletti says, I want a midfielder with this, and this capability. And my team recommends player X, Y, and Z. If you can get player X or Y or Z, please give me a midfielder with the same dynamics or abilities that I need for my team to work well. So these are 2 points that for me, at least give me some comfort in the fact knowing that where we're lacking right now, I think Spalletti will intervene in one way or another. But the fact of the matter is we're going to have to make do with what we have until January. And while Jamal brings up a good point, I think we'll see Moretti a lot more if he's match fit with Spalletti, because he's the type of player that Spalletti can really mold, as he's done with Brozovic in the past, for instance. I can see him taking on that Brozovic role or that De Rossi kind of role in terms of presence on the pitch or in terms of position. So I wouldn't put it past him. What I do know for sure is that Spalletti will enforce a 3-man midfield, which for me is good news if it works, because the 2-man midfield, I think we're all in agreement, it just doesn't work with this team. It doesn't work, especially due to the lack of qualities we have in midfield. So I'm very anxious and eager to see what Spalletti brings to the table at that regard.
Look for evidence of everything you're saying, Fred. Look no further than Lobotka at Napoli. Moved his position, put him in a spot to be successful, coached him up. Yes, and then again he brings in Anguissa, right, to fill in that spot next to him. Not only strengthening the role of the existing player that he's working on, but improve the midfield as a whole.
Yeah, and the thing that I like, well, that was something between, me and my source were texting, and he said the thing that, what I feel very comfortable about in this whole Spalletti thing is he actually takes time in practice to teach a player certain things. You don't have to teach them how to stop a ball, how to turn and shoot. Of course, these are things that they've developed, but the small details which make the difference between a fluid attack or a breakdown of an attack or whatever you need at that point, he just stops the play and says, "Hey, player X, Y, or Z, come over. You did this. It would be better if you did this, or if you played the ball there." And I think that's something this team sorely needs because we're feeling it like a bunch of loose sand at the moment. And I think he has the qualities to improve a player individually and our team as a whole.
We got another question, a player-specific question, back to Vlahovic. Mitch is kind of wondering, do you play Vlahovic, considering he's leaving, but at the same time seems to be the most inspired of our three forwards? Jack, go to you first. Would he be your starting striker? The first game under Spalletti, everyone's going to be looking at a starting 11. Who does he trust? Right? By your estimation, should Dusan be the starting striker in the first game under Spalletti?
I'm going to actually go out and say no. He's probably one of our best starting strikers right now, or the best starting striker we have. But I'm going to go out and say no for the reason that Mitch posed in the question. I think it's very likely. I mean, he's leaving in June. I think there's even a possibility he leaves in January, as we've heard before. Mm-hmm. And we literally just talked about building the confidence of our strikers who are going to be on the roster for the remainder of the year and going forward. So I think it might be time. And he proved himself to be very useful off the bench earlier in the year. So I'd probably, if we're looking a little bit like we look today, starting Yildiz behind Openda and David, with Vlahovic coming off the bench.
Frederic.
Yes, play him. I think the reason we are playing him is because we don't want to lose him on a free.
So actually touch on this, Frederic, because you've also on not only our scoop, but also on other Turin Giant episodes mentioned that there's definitely interest from actually some pretty high profile teams for Vlahovic in the winter. Do you mind speaking a little bit about that? I see Nick in the chat is kind of talking or kind of referencing those. So why don't you kind of give us, if you don't mind, a brief update?
Well, two teams are very interested in Vlahovic. One of them is Bayern Munich. I think because Bayern is expecting to lose Kane or maybe replace him. I don't know what's going on there, but I personally know Vincent Kompany, and I know that Kompany is a big fan of Vlahovic. He was already when he saw Vlahovic playing with I think it was Dinamo Zagreb in the Youth League against Anderlecht. So he's been a fan of him, but I think they're trying to get him on a free, which would be logical. But Tottenham Hotspur, our best friend, Juventino at heart, Fabio Paratici is going to try and sign him in January. The question begs, though, is Vlahovic content with a team like Tottenham, or does he want to hold out for Bayern Munich? So those are the two teams that are very interested in him.
What about the rumors, like Nick says, about him potentially renewing for a lower contract or something like that?
No. Categorically.
Okay.
Does he really want to go and compete with Colomwani again?
Well, Colomwani hasn't played at all, and he's on a dry loan, so he ain't gonna. So there's
yeah, the Colomwani thing is difficult. I'd be happier if we were able to switch them, like get Vlahovic in at Tottenham and bring Colomwani back. But like Mitch said, that ship has sailed. It's gone out of the harbor. It's even made its way to Bikini Bottom by now. So
it sank. Yeah,
it sank quite deeply. So I think we'll have to be on the lookout for somebody else. And that's also a little thing, because if you get rid of Vlahovic, it's not certain that, everybody's thinking, we bought David, so David's going to be the natural replacement for Vlahovic. I'm not sure that that's the game plan that Juve had, to be honest. So I'm not so sure, especially with Segrova having more issues with his injury.
What's
Um,
going on with him? What's going on with him?
it's very difficult to say. He has this pubalgic infection in and around the area of the groin. It doesn't hurt him that much, only when he goes to full effort. So if he gives 60-70%, then it's non-existent. But once he goes into overdrive or into Champions League mode, or how to put it, then it becomes an issue. The only thing we can do right now is either get him to surgery once again. If we do that, he's out for the rest of the season and even a part of next season, because they ran some tests at J Medical, or rest and building up resistance and whatever. But then there's like no term and or no as to when he'll be back. And before people in the chat and online go crazy, this is not a Juventus J Medical issue. This is just something that often happens with pubalgic discomforts. They go away, they come back when you force yourself. They tend to get worse. This is something you cannot predict, you cannot see on a scan or in the blood work or whatever. It's dumb luck. And we're right in the corner where we keep getting punched in the face. So this is another punch in the face for us. But if he doesn't, progress, then I wouldn't rule out, if Vlahovic leaves, that we get somebody else in, either on a dry loan or a loan with an option to buy.
It's a real shame to hear that about him, Fred,
Yeah.
because that's playing at 100%. I feel like that's his game, right? Shiftiness,
Yeah.
speed, acceleration, quickness, cutting left and right.
He was um before the Lazio game, he was in doubt, and there were like Tudor always had to have like 2 training sessions where he would pretty much mold the team or the starting 11. And one training session went very well for him. He was one of the best on the pitch because they played in 11 versus 11 as well. And the next training session, he was in tears, just due to not only the pain, the discomfort, but also the realization of, damn, I still feel it. I still can't give 100%. I'm not ready yet. When will I be ready? I mean, for a player this age, it's very easy to lose yourself mentally if you keep, struggling with that injury, not knowing when you'll be match fit, not knowing what you need to do in order to regain your fitness. So it's a heavy burden for him and for us.
Mm-hmm. Let's. I mean, we've, and I appreciate the chat giving us some really good questions. Let's kind of take a giant step back. I think Jack was talking about played with a little bit more freedom. It certainly looked to me like we played with a weight off of our back for much of this game. Look, and by virtue of how we moved, how we had these really good interchanges, how we fashioned a lot of legitimate chances, something, all the three of which were sorely lacking over the last 8 games. And you had said before we got on, Frederic, that this is what maybe our second best performance of the year. I don't know if it was that good per se, but it's definitely one of our better performances for the year in this opinion. And what does that, how do you interpret that? I mean, is that a Tudor thing? Like they're so glad he's gone? Is that just a hope thing where they see, a new coach coming in as sort of a new opportunity for them to impress or for us to shake whatever it might be? I mean, how do you interpret how we played today in the context of our season?
I'm gonna let Jack go first if he doesn't mind, because I'm very curious to see what Jack's opinion is on that.
I think it's all of the above. I hate to say that, right? I think you're hopeful for a new opportunity. I think as a player, you're hopeful to be able to cultivate a new relationship with a new coach, to have this new coach believe in you, and you understand as a player that you need to earn that trust and earn that belief. I think a lot of the weight coming off of the shoulders. I think when the news all around Tudor is hashtag Tudor out, right? And this is your coach. And I think though we don't see it, or we did not see it as much on the pitch, I think players did care, right? They did want to do well, and I think that when the coach is dismissed in the manner that Tudor was after a performance or performances that we had seen from the team, I think there is a small sense of relief in that, okay, we effed up. We can start again now. Let's start fresh. I'd like to build a new relationship. I'd like to impress this new coach. I'd like to earn my place on this team. And I also think that with a new coach comes new expectations, for better or worse, from the fans. And I think that the players understand, at least I hope they do, that a lot of them need to prove themselves to the fans after a string of really poor performances. It's time to step up, not only for the coach, but for the fans, for the club, and for themselves, right? Whether this is the last year on their contract, like a McKinney or a Vlahovic, or you're just walking in and trying to get your feet on the pitch, like a João Mario, who hasn't seen much playing time, or Openda or David. This is an opportunity for them to do that as well. So I think that definitely gives you that little bit extra when you step on the pitch. It's an all of the above. Like I said, I never think it's just one simple answer or one single thing that changes your mentality on the pitch.
I think very good answer, Jack. Very, couldn't have said it better myself, but I also think it's a bit of the shock effect. I think if you look back at when Mota was fired and, the first couple of games under Tudor, it was like, we're so back, baby. Well, we weren't. That's just the shock effect, which is normal because it hits you like a ton of bricks. Even if you don't like the coach, if you're in that dressing room and you get that announcement that the coach is gone, you feel responsible, whether you like it or not, whether you like the coach or not, you feel responsible and hey, this is reality slapping me in the face right now. We're underperforming. Is it the coach's fault? I don't know. Is it my fault? I don't know. Is it the guy's fault sitting next to me? I don't know, but we're all failing here. So I think it's that, sense of responsibility that gets shoved down your throat when that announcement comes. But, also a bit, I think the fact that players are aware now that, playtime's over, because a lot of ex-players, legends even, were very critical about the team as a whole. Whereas with Mota, you had everybody going against Mota with the decisions that he made, rightfully so. But now you have players protecting Tudor, ex-players protecting Tudor, players who Tudor played with, who know him, who said, hey, this isn't on him. Granted, he made some weird and strange decisions, but hey, look at that Locatelli guy. Look at that Cambiasso with his head up his ass ever since Manchester City offered him X amount of million dollars. I think these players sense that as well. Evra was very, very hard on the team, rightfully so. Comoli he's fed up with some of the players, like fed up in the most, I don't even know how to put it, but he's really, really, really angry at some players, the way they behave, the way that there was actually a player, I'm not going to mention any names, that's not my job, I don't want to throw him up, but there was a player who contacted Chiellini by phone, asking him, don't you think it's a better idea if we're coached by Palladino? Like, bro, who are you? I mean, you're just a player. Even if I get like a lawn chair in to coach you guys, you listen to the lawn chair. That's the hierarchy of this team. You don't have to phone me or tell me who I need to have a casting session with, or who I need to consider, or who I don't need to consider. So those are the things that are going wrong right now. And I think firing Tudor, letting some of the ex-players talk, and just sending out the message like, it's not just his fault. He shares the responsibility now. He's the one that's out the window, but there'll be transfer periods as well. And I think we all know for a fact Comoli and even Spalletti is not afraid just, to guide players to the door. So I think that shock effect has turned in full effect right now.
I mean, well, what is a player going to say to Spalletti? Spalletti comes in. He's coached 1,100 games at the top level. It's like he's going to be. He's not going to take any of that nonsense. That is, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of his, it's his record. He's been successful everywhere he's gone. You can't question that. You can't question he's an adult in the room, and that's something that with both Tudor and Malta we wanted, somebody who could be that leader. especially if we don't have a leader within the dressing room or within the group of players. So that is definitely something I look to see from him. Let's, I don't think we forgot anything about the game, did we? I think we've kind of covered it. There's not much to talk about because we're not going to discuss tactics with Brambillaball. Let's just go, Frederick. Are we going to even see him this weekend, or will that be the first game under Spalletti?
Probably so, and I think that if all goes well, we should even put out the what do you call it, press statement, or even the whole shebang about him signing on as a coach tomorrow. It could have been done today. Juventus chose not to do that because they want to give Brambilla his moment as well, which I think is very nice because Brambilla put himself in the lurch here by coaching the first team for a couple of days, but it's still, your schedule gets all thrown up. So out of respect for the work that he's put in, they wanted to grant him this. That was always the plan. But the initial plan was to bring in the new coach before the next game. And stop reading the internet. I hear a lot of rumors. Oh, it's not done yet. Chiellini said the paperwork hasn't been signed, blah, blah, blah. The paperwork was signed today, this morning. I texted you guys. You can vouch for that. And it was a done deal yesterday already. Why was it a done deal yesterday and wasn't the paperwork signed? Because Comoli was very impressed with how Spalletti handled himself. At a certain point, Spalletti said, I don't care about the duration of the contract. I don't even care about my salary. You guys need to do what you think is right. And if you guys feel that I deserve to be the coach of Juventus for a longer period, then I'm very happy to accept. If that's not the case, that means that I fail. So he didn't come in with all these, I need these things and I want this and this is non-negotiable. He said, no, I want to coach Juventus and it's up to me to prove myself. And if you guys want to continue with me after I've done well, I'd be happy to. If not, then I did something wrong and I deserve to be out. So, that's something that not a lot of coaches these days would say or even state. So I think when Comoli heard that, he made his decision on the spot, saying, welcome to Juventus.
Actually, let's take a moment to talk about Massimo Brambilla because he has not coached above Serie C. He had a lot of years in Atalanta's youth system. He came to coach the next gen, left for Foggia, was fired almost instantly, came back to next gen last season with the team in dead last in their group in Serie C. They went on an absolute tear to make this the playoffs and have started this season mid-table when the next gen team usually starts seasons worse. I think it's a really cool moment for him in his relatively young coaching career. Maybe young is not the right term, but he hasn't coached at the stature. I think it's just a cool moment where he could step in and get the credit for a victory for Juventus. And so I think it's just a brief applause. If I was Farhad, I could find the applause.
100%.
It's been a while.
But you don't know
100% record.
Yeah, he is. You guys don't know how many sound drops that
I don't even want to know.
There's like 100, and I'm trying to find an applause for Massimo. And
he declined at first.
He did.
He declined. Yeah, he declined. Decline. I mean, it's a big word because if the big chief comes and asks this of you, then it's very hard to decline and say no, I'm not going to do it because he's still your boss at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So it's very difficult. But he said, with utmost respect, I don't feel like I can, because they didn't discuss any length of being an interim coach yet. It was only after Brambilla said, like, okay, I'll do it, but not more than 2 games, that management said, okay, we're going to try to bring the new coach in before the next game after the Udinese game. We'll try our best. But, should that not work, would you even consider also coaching, I think it's the Cremonese game?
Mm-hmm.
To which Brambilla said yes, but after that, please just put me back at next gen because this is not for me. Like the press, the whole. He's a very very good man manager. He's somebody who can really motivate a team. You can get a lot out of him. Tactically, he's a bit of a tutor in that respect. He has a lot of knowledge, and he's very well read in terms of technical things, formations, what have you. But he has a lot of difficulties by translating that onto pitch actions, which he knows. So he lacks that, extra spark, that bit of confidence to be the head coach, either in Serie B or Serie A. And that's not something he chases as well. Like he's fine at next gen. That's his thing. He feels good. He's happy. So he doesn't want the limelight. He doesn't want the extra tension and this and that. So we'll see where it takes him. But respect for him for doing it and getting his whole schedule riled up to once again save our asses a bit. Because I think Montero did the same last season or the season before. Can't remember. Was it the Allegri Motta switch that Montero came in?
I think for like the last
think
game of the
so.
season or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's our go-to moment. Like, hey, we fired our coach. We still haven't got a backup yet. Could you, help us out a bit? But that's the thing that bothers me as well about this whole thing, because I feel if you fire a coach, you need to have the coach ready, the other one to fill in. You
No,
need
but
to have.
that's why you applaud him. That's why you applaud him because I mean, I think it's stressful to come in and now you have the Juventus fan base looking at you. I think he never played for us. He didn't play for when he was a player, like large sides. I think the biggest team he played for was Torino. He hasn't managed at this, so it's stressful, right? I mean, he comes into a big environment. He's going to feel pressure because he's going to want to be successful, right? And as you said, from a stature standpoint, this is just not his field of play. But he came on, and I think he was very composed. I'm not going to spend much time discussing sub strategy or tactics, right? Because that's not why we're here. I think in his regard, you judge it on the result. He came in, he was on the sideline. We won 3-1, winning for the first time in 9 games and scoring 3 goals for the first time in 5. So to Massimo Brambilla, for however long we see you, I finally found the drop. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah. So next, we move on to the next era. What is?
Yeah. So that's the segue. That's the segue, Frederic. Thank you. So
You're
what is the
welcome.
next? What's going on behind the scenes? You kind of alluded to it earlier with Spalletti. Announcing he could have announced them this, could announce that. Kind of break it down. What should we expect over the next couple of days before that game against Cremonese?
Well, the plans as they stand right now, because Spalletti should have been at the stadium tonight. I think he had a funeral or something, some family issues that he needed to attend to. But he did find the time to sign with us this morning already. He had a meeting with Comoli, Modesto, Chiellini, and Alcon. That's also the reason why Alcon was at the stadium yesterday evening, where they basically drew up everything they needed to drew up in order to get the contract done. But they wouldn't, like I said, steal the thunder from Brambilla today. So they chose not to do that, especially because Spalletti wasn't going to be there. And he should, he should.
For those listening, Ozymandias came in like a hurricane with the Spalletti out, keep Brambilla statement with the
Just
nice
wait,
sarcastic
Ozymandias.
designator. Yes.
Just wait a couple of months, then you can rehash the statement again.
Oh God.
I mean, it's our go-to method like these days. But no, so the plan is to present Spalletti tomorrow, and let him. I think they have how do you call it, recuperation training tomorrow. For after the game, they'll probably let Brambilla do that, and then the second training, because there are 2 training sessions planned tomorrow, is going to be held with Spalletti, but I'm not sure he's going to hold a training session. I think he's going to hold a group chat thingy, or so I've been told. And then it's all, hard
Group
work,
chat thingy.
Friday and Saturday. Yeah,
Is
group chat
that
thingy.
a technical term?
That's a
Frederick?
technical term.
Okay,
That's
group chat
how
thingy.
it,
Okay.
that's in the official planning of
It's
all
the
of
calendar.
Continasa.
Yeah.
It's lunch, rest, group chat thingy. So
Team meeting,
something along those.
maybe.
No, I think it's going to be fairly informal. I think he's going to, just sit even on the pitch, in my opinion, just sit with the guys on the pitch and say, okay, let me know, who are you? What are you doing? What do you look forward to? Spalletti's very spiritual in that regard. He looks at the human side of things a lot, and he wants to get the human behind the footballer first if he doesn't know the players themselves. But then he goes into full trainer mode, and then it's work, 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 work. Also, there are 2 or 3 issues that need to be resolved regarding his staff still. I think 70% of the staff is already ready. There's just one little hiccup, being Darren Burgess at the moment, because he's our chief, what is it, health, fitness? I don't know what the term even was. But Spalletti is a man, and on bringing his preparations guy in, they'll find a way. I think they'll find a way, so that's not an issue. But there's still some things that need to be ironed out. But Spalletti is very eager. And highlight, I know you can't see if you're listening on Spotify and you're driving down to work, but please highlight very eager.
Double
Burgess, Mitch,
underline,
yeah,
highlighted,
Burgess,
bold.
Burgess is there yet. He is. He
Okay,
is
Mitch
present.
asked. Sorry for those listening. The sudden
Sorry.
change in topic was because Mitch asked a question about Darren Burgess, who we know was announced forever ago, yet took forever to get there.
Yeah, Burgess is working in full effect. I feel that the official presentation, or how do you call it, because there's a whole team under Burgess as well that's been assumed by Juventus, or by Burgess for Juventus, will be made public at around after the 7th of November, when we'll have the whole board of directors staying. I also think that we'll have our sporting director by November 7th, or at least halfway around November. And there's some pretty surprising names. Do you have the scoop drop? Do you have the scoop drop?
Hold on. We have a very late guest.
Oh shit! It's
We are
hard.
so back,
Hold on.
baby.
I can find the drop. Here we go.
And now, Freddy Scoops with the scoop. He's the best in the business, see?
Thank you.
Alrighty, we did the drop. We did the drop for Frederic, and of course, the main man Farhad has decided 1 hour and 8 minutes into our show.
Look at my haircut. Yeah, but look at my haircut.
No, he's looking fresh as hell, ladies and gentlemen. And
Yeah,
the wall
it's
behind him
nice
is
to have
falling
hair.
off. The stuff in the background's going on. There's a skeleton without an arm.
It's a spooky. I know it just fell
Farhad
almost on my head and broke its hand.
It's coming
What's up,
in
boys? It's so
predictably
good.
with a lot of
Three-
energy.
Three
Oh, you
goals,
kind of
babe.
you're stealing my moment here, man. Like
We just played the
It
drop,
was a-
Farhad. Let Frederic say.
it was
Frederic
like
sorry,
a
sorry,
drop
go ahead.
moment. No, it's okay. I mean, you're the boss. You can do that.
No, stop it. No, I'm sorry. I was just very excited to actually make it because I was actually listening. I was one of the watchers.
Yes, and I have to highlight Ozymandias, who said, Frederick, I still remember you saying Maldini would be our next sporting director. That was the plan until Camoli showed up. So sorry for that, Ozymandias. I'm not responsible for everything that goes wrong at Juventus. I'm responsible for a lot of things that go wrong for Juventus, but not everything. But contacts have been intensified for the role of sporting director with Hasan Salihamidzic. Between a lot of talks have went on with Hasan Salihamidzic, Chiellini, and Camoli about the role. I'm not sure as to where they stand or where the priority lies. Frederick out. Yeah, I feel it.
Frederic, I got to be honest with you. I gotta be honest, you're giving us some like serious, detailed information. I see Farhad trying to put a skeleton on his shoulder, failing
It's
miserably.
spooky season, baby. It's spooky
I've got
season.
Josh saying that Farhad's haircut looks as good as Gotti's hair transplant, and Ozymandias
Oh,
saying
that's
Frederick out. So sorry, I'm very distracted right now. I'm actually doing
yeah,
my
I
best
can imagine.
Farhad impression by just being completely distracted.
I can imagine.
So
But
yeah,
I'm
so
listening.
to
I'm listening.
summarize,
yes.
a lot of talks been going back and forth between our management and Bratzo Hasan Salihamidzic for the role of sporting director, and I'm not sure how to put it in terms of priority or where he is on the short list, but there have been talks. He can play right wing. I'm going to reply to our good friend Dan Colissimo, Colo 99. Can Sally play right wing back instead? There should be some sort of thing like in his contract stating that, if he has a couple of hours on a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon, that he should fill those hours with playing right wing back. So
Unfortunately, I think the registration window has closed. So I think we would have to wait for January. Anyways,
but he's
Colo.
a free agent.
Yeah, but I know. But hasn't that passed? Hasn't that window passed as well? Like, can't you not only sign those for up to a certain point?
I think if you haven't played on a professional level for 2 seasons, then you can just come right in. That would explain why we have Gotti as our. Oh, I'm not gonna go there.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
It's so funny. The comments are Salihamidzic did well at Bayern, and then another one says that he was a disaster at Bayern.
I gotta be honest, Masood, with the comment with the his spelling is in my head how I try to pronounce it. So it's just the name's a little bit too long for me.
Come on, yeah.
Salihamidzic?
Clearly
It's not
some
that difficult.
name.
clearly some different of opinions there. I want to take a second because we're getting a lot of really good comments, a lot of really good questions from the chat. Masood's joined us, Kale Stars joined us, Sky's joined us, as well as the folks Ryan and Josh and Ozymandias, Sasko Colo and Mitch and folks who've been with us this whole time. We really appreciate you joining us. It's nice to talk to you guys after a win, which hasn't happened in forever. So
that's the first time. Yeah.
This is nice to have y'all here and sharing that with us. Alrighty, so we've covered the game. We've covered kind of what to expect over the next few days from Spalletti, as well as what could be in our future.
Should we talk incoming transfers or things that Spalletti has in mind, or which we can, or is that not something we need to?
Okay, so since you went there, we're gonna once again.
And now, Freddie Scoops with the scoop. He's the best in the business,
No.
see?
This is your fault, Frederick.
Yeah,
This is your fault.
I'm sorry. It's not a clear. It's not like we're not at the point of naming names yet, but I can definitely confess or vouch for the fact that when they had these talks, Spalletti did ask for more depth. So he did ask about, what kind of budget am I looking at for January? And in my opinion, and that was very respectful what he said, because he said, I don't know the team. I've seen the team on TV, but I don't know the team. But is it possible to have at least in every line of the pitch an extra player?
I mean, that's obvious stuff, though. I mean, Frederic, we've been talking about it, right?
I don't know. I think
Jack, hit us with it. What, the center back, right wing back, midfield? I mean,
all the same.
I think it's different in terms of if you say every player in every line on the pitch, because to me that also means goalkeeper, center back, or right wing back, or whatever you need, midfielder, and striker and or number 10. So, I mean, you're looking at least 4 people coming out without keeping account with people who might even go away, which you'll have to replace.
That's another thing from like a negotiation standpoint, not to sign a contract, but once he's signed, that's not a bad place to start, right? Acknowledging you need someone on every line and saying, I don't know the team. I don't know the players. I don't know what they bring to the table. let me coach them for a few weeks. I've already planted the seed that we're going to talk about a new player at every line. But now let's talk specifically about that center defensive midfielder or that right wing back. So listen, if he's being intelligent about starting that conversation now, I think that just goes to show that he's trying to come in prepared to have that dialogue when the time comes, having planted that seed with Kamoli and Crow and Co. that those changes are needed.
I think talking about players, like, look, depth, even a blind person could see that we need depth. I think what we need to see is get Spalletti in with this team in training to see who fits what he's trying to do and who he sees has the potential to grow into the roles he has. Like Moretti, a young player I've been critical of, could very well come in and Spalletti's like, look, here, do this little thing, and he unlocks that final ball that Moretti's been lacking. Or he gets in there and says, this guy has no chance. Get rid of him. We're not going to know truly what we need, like what kind of depth we need or what kind of contribution we need until he gets in training with the players to say like, these are the players who fit what I'm trying to do and have a future here. And these players do not.
One thing, and that's, kind of adjacent on the fact that what I just said, they talked about the sporting director, not in terms of names, but Kamoli, that's what I'm hearing, told Spalletti that they have a short list of 45 players that they will pass on to the sport.
I think Frederick, you lagged out for a second, but you said a short list of 45 players.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I need a super scientific response from Farhad here, because this has come up several times with short lists with Frederic, of short list of 115 players. Farhad, where's the line from when a list stops being short?
At 45.
45. Okay.
No, that's the first thing I thought about. I was like, not a really short list, is it? Boys, I have to. Thanks for throwing it to me. I have to run. I just want to tell everyone who's listening and the new. Sorry, I wanted to pop in and say hello. I wanted to thank everyone who did an awesome job yesterday with all the breaking news, and the boys were live on YouTube, but like. Zach was on at like 7 a.m, still with a morning voice. I want to thank you boys for awesome work yesterday. We obviously the big news was huge for us and as a channel. So Zach, Frederick, Kevin, you guys are working overtime and I so appreciate you. Jack, thanks for popping on, my friend. All right, boys and girls, everyone in the chat, appreciate
you.
Thanks,
Farhad. Comes in an hour late. His ceiling falls behind him. A skeleton makes an appearance, and then he pieces out.
Somebody call him Ahmed.
The guy stayed on for 9 minutes.
But I think after 13 seasons of the podcast, I can take a day off. So I appreciate it.
All right, Farhad. Thanks for joining us for a
Rogers
second.
opening.
We're staying
Love
here,
you all.
everybody. Bye, Farhad.
Bye.
Yes, thank you, boys.
No, about the short list, I know that, a short list isn't short when there's 45 people on it, but there's certain characteristics or abilities that they measure against each other. So every player or role has like 3 or 4 alternatives. So that's not to say that every player is equal to one another or should fill in that missing gap. But, it goes with negotiations. You never know if a player is available, if he's willing to come, if he doesn't have high salary demands, because it was a thing in the past, and I've seen this black on white, that certain people of management talk to certain managers of players, and he likes the project, he wants to come, if we can do 4 million in bonuses, that's okay. And then they move on to the negotiation phase, and then the player or the management pulls out, we need at least 7.5 million fixed. So you lose a week by discussing absolutely nothing, by just hanging on to a manager's words, to be faced with an whole other dimension when negotiating. And that's why Kamoli very much insists on having a backup of a backup of a backup, which he has done with the coaching thing as well. Because I've seen a lot of names come by, but it was, Spalletti was their priority, but there were names after Spalletti They were going to ensure that somebody came in for the Cremonese game, whether it be for 2 seasons or just this season, I don't know. But there were always alternatives, and that's Comolli's angle of working, like having backup plans and not being left in the lurch like we have been in the past, or being dependent on managers who choke the living daylights out of you just because they have some leverage over you. So it's a short list that's long. It sounds stupid. It's not. That's basically in a nutshell.
Nick and Mitch asked about Bernardo Silva, obviously a player that we've talked a lot about over the summer. I think we may have been the first to discuss him as a potential player for Juventus during our Scoop series over the summer. You had mentioned that there was a long shot possibility he joins in January. Is there any news on that?
No, not yet. Why hasn't there been? First, we are missing a sporting director. And I think Comolli's angle right now is every incoming or outgoing transfer needs to have the blessing of aforementioned sporting director, which I repeat will be made or presented within November somewhere. And secondly, Comolli had to deal with a lot of things on his own, and he didn't feel comfortable in letting Modesto handle that big of a negotiation. I know there's still contact between the management, but there's nothing like concrete. It's just very polite, very keeping in touch with each other. And I'm looking forward to see how it will progress. I think Comolli's very, very convinced that Bernardo Silva could do something for the team at this moment. But of course, you need the yes of Spalletti and the sporting director. And then you can move on to the more concrete things like negotiations, wages, and such. So, but no news for me is good news.
Alrighty, have we discussed everything? I'm trying. We discussed look ahead. We discussed transfers. We discussed the game. Are there any questions from folks that we missed? I don't think so, gentlemen. I think we've covered it. It all.
One question, if I may. Sky, who's a very avid fan, and we always see her popping up at Beppe Show as well. Sky asks, what kind of mentality does Spalletti bring? And I've been going on a rant, and I know for a fact that my good friend Zach has done his homework, and he looked at Spalletti's past, and he delved in deeper because you don't have anything to do in your day job. So I'm looking forward to see what Zach's opinion about Spalletti's mentality is. Sorry, Zach's boss. It's a joke, Zach's boss. Don't fire him.
Yeah, that's you put me on the spot and threw me under the bus all at the same time. I think Spalletti is an old school. He's an old school, established coach. He's going to come in with a sense of rigidity in the sense that it's his way or the highway, but that doesn't mean he's so aggressive that he's not going to leave the room open for growth in the player. I think Frederic mentioned it earlier. He really focuses on enriching the players ahead of him, and I think that's part of the reason why one of the reasons why I think the national team experiment did not work for him is he was very much used to the sort of the club management working with players on that day-to-day basis to get the best out of them and what he wanted to see from them that you just can't do as an international manager. I think at some points though he can be a little bit prickly, and we've seen with different managements and sometimes with different players that when they don't jive, sparks will fly. And so for me, in one of our episodes yesterday, I said it was, as far as I'm concerned, 50% chance that the players buy into what he does. And as a well-established tactician and proven winner, that would mean that Juventus would be put on the right track, bring in, a la Ranieri last year when he rescued Roma and they went on that giant run. I think I also said sort of 50% chance that it goes the other way. We've seen a lot of resistance to the management and to play style and playing time in the locker room over the last year and a half. And if those same type of personalities try to pull that nonsense against Spalletti, you can absolutely forget about it. He's not going to live with that. And that concerns me, that we have this immature group that might butt heads with a guy who's not going to deal with it. And that might further erode, not to say that that's, I would encourage that in any way, shape, or form. I think these players need to grow up and get in line, but they've proven somewhat childish, and that could hurt us if they don't wake up.
I think that the bit of, I guess, rigidity, I think is the word you use, Zach, is okay as long as there is an inflexibility as well. You can be rigid with your ideas, but then also understand that if you set up a game, it doesn't go well. This idea of being a good leader, that idea of like failing forward, right? So I'm going to look at what went well and build off of that. So yes, you could still be rigid with your formation and your tactics, but the idea that you're still flexible in your thinking and that you can tweak and make minor changes, trying to address things that didn't work well. If he can bring that to the team, I think, because from my perspective, all I really want to see, besides for fourth place, because I think it's critical, and you guys have talked about it plenty, is I want to see progress, right? And if he can still be rigid and be strict and really hammer the players whose heads have gotten entirely too big, but then also help them grow, and we see progress with the team on and off the pitch, I think then he merits a good look at the end of the season. I think it's great he's opened himself up to coming in to finish the season, and then Fred, you've talked about it, like, if I screw up, then see you later, right? But if I can show progress, if I can get this team to fourth place, if I can help with the January market and bring some players in that I can help improve, or that improve a department in the team, then yes, he's a net positive for Juve for the rest of the season.
Spalletti, in terms of mentality, in terms of conducting himself, he's mentally unstable. And that's the part that I like. Because you have two types of mentally unstable. You have the Conte type, who takes himself way too seriously and thinks that he's God's given gift to football. But then you have Spalletti, who's just as crazy as he is, but he knows it. And he tries to work that in with a pinch of humor. He's very self-reflecting in that respect. I like that. He's the coach that can take a young player and tell the player, look, been watching you, this is not right, maybe there's something wrong with your, I don't know, your diet, whatever, I've looked this over, I think this will benefit you. But he's also the kind of coach that says, fuck right off, this has nothing to do with your diet or your coaching or whatever, you're just lazy, start moving, you lazy son of a so there's two sides of him, and he adapts really well in terms of what the group needs at that point. So in my opinion, this group now needs or lacks leadership. He's somebody who can bring in that leadership with a firm hand, but also be the guy to say, hey, Koopmeiners, this and this, I've been analyzing your videos. I've been looking back to your Atalanta period. I think you're missing this. Would you play better if we, I don't know, had a midfield with 3 people in with the support from, I don't know, Thuram and Miretti? Let's give it a go. Let's see how it works out. We're going to focus on this the coming 2 days in practice. Let's see how you feel. Let's see how you perform. I don't know, something along those lines. So he's very, very flexible, but he's utterly insane. And I think a bit of insanity right now is what we need, because we were talking about a project and we need people with passion and Juventinità and DNA. And we forgot about the core things. The core things are molding a team that goes to hell and to war with and for each other. This is something he can do whilst he improves people or players personally, mentally, and the team as a whole. And if we have that, then that's the starting point we need. That's the literal spark we need to bring our team and our club back, in my opinion. And as Zach pointed out, it could backfire, but I'd rather, take the chance with somebody who's weathered tons of storms already in his career and made something out of those storms, rather than, pick the next hyped young coach like a Palladino, who in my opinion hasn't proven anything, and he's still without a club, so I'm not sure if he's that good. But, I'd rather take my chances with a Spalletti at this point.
Well, gentlemen, I think we did it. 1 hour and a half in, I think we can call it. It was absolutely a joy to talk about a win for the first time in forever. I really want to appreciate everyone who popped up into the chat, y'all. As always, we're really active, ask good questions, and we're a lot of fun as we sit here ready to log off on this 323rd episode of Turin Giants. Juventus sits tied for 6th, well, technically in 7th place, but tied on points with Bologna, who's currently playing Torino to a 0-0 draw. So not too far off despite the really bad run of games, 6 points off of first place. And that gives us hopefully something for Spalletti to build on that we should see starting this weekend against Cremonese, who, as it stands, is 1 point behind us on 14 points in 8th place. So it's crazy to think about it, but there's a lot to play for in that game. And I absolutely look forward to doing that and talking about that with all of you. Fred, Jack, and everybody who listened, thank you for your time. And as always, Forza Juve.
In the middle of the railroad track, looked around and I knew there was no turning back. My mind raced and I thought, what could I do? And I knew there was no help from you. Sound of the drum